you need to meal prep. This is one of the most common pieces of nutrition advice you will get, especially if you are on a health journey and if that health journey includes, say, going to the gym. So you get this piece of advice from trained and untrained people saying that this is key to unlocking whatever benefits or outcome from going on this health journey. And there are some of us who swear by meal prep, some of us who do it great, and then you have those who fail at it miserably. And the folks who are doing great at it will tell these people that they're not trying hard enough. And I want to challenge that and say, I don't think that's it. I very likely think it's the result of you thinking meal prep has to look a particular way, or how folks have told you meal prep needs to look. Because I bet when you hear the phrase meal prep, what do you think of? Chances are you are going to think, or what's going to come to mind, is a bunch of containers spread out on your counter with all of these meals, most of which being the same for a couple of days. Correct? Yeah, that's what comes to mind when I think of meal prep too. And that's the most common version of meal prep and most popular version of meal prep that you will see and hear about. But that's only one version. And I'll share other versions of it further down. But I just wanted to highlight that the most common version is the one you often hear and see. And it's the one folks often seem to fail at. So they think that if they can't do it that way, then they are failing. The inherent part of that version of meal prep is this: there's repetition, meaning you're going to eat the same meals for a couple of days. And then there are folks who work perfectly with this repetition for a number of reasons. Less decisions to make, especially when they're tired. Some people just don't want to think about it. And some people are just locked into a particular thing and they're just zeroed in on eating this way. And then you have those who would rather eat sawdust than eat the same meal repeatedly, aka leftovers, which is what they call them. That's what they are. And you have these people who are justified for a variety of reasons. Some people have food sensory issues. Some people get bored. Some people want more variety. You name it. If you're one such person, you know why you cannot eat the same food over and over again. I'm a person who it can go either way. I can eat certain foods all week, and then there are some times where I get sick of it and I don't want to see it the next day. But this is it to highlight the fact that with meal prep, or with this version of meal prep, there is repetition involved. And some folks are fine and others are not. Right? And because what sounds good today on a Sunday sounds terrible by Thursday. And then that's the thing about this version of meal prep. You think you prep on Sunday, you portion out the meals, and then you have them to eat Monday to Friday. And not everybody enjoys that. What sounds good Sunday, by Wednesday, you are absolutely sick of it. And this, in and of itself, that being sick of the food or being bored with the food and wanting variety, isn't a flaw per se. It's also a hint, if not a clue, as to what's going on with your body. Because body and mind are linked. And you don't have the same energy every single day. And meal prep, this one version of meal prep, assumes that you're going to have the same appetite, you're going to have the same desire, you're going to have the same control, you're going to have all the variables remain the same throughout the week. When we know that's not the case, we know that our energy levels will shift, our motivation can wane. So many things can impact us, especially when you have to deal with other variables in life. You know, you are an adult. You have to deal with gas prices, grocery bill. If you've got kids, there's that thrown into it. All the things that make up living impact your ability to want food or want certain types of food. And so it's important to remember that because you are not the same every single day, you need to make adjustments. And this is why I say flexibility is important and being curious about food is necessary for you to navigate food in general. And I talk about this very often, especially in my weekly newsletter, The Weekly Dose, where I share meal ideas, cooking insights, and thoughtful perspective around the way we think about food and therefore how we interact with food because it impacts how we nourish ourselves. So when it comes to meal prep, the rigid meal prep doesn't work for everybody. And it makes it especially hard for you when things shift, meaning you have the plan for when it's perfect. But when the situation isn't perfect, when your energy might dip, when you end up in meetings longer than you intended, when you forgot your meal at work, you go to work and you forget the meal in the fridge. What do you do? This is where flexibility comes in, and it's important around meal prep in general. If you can't adjust, if you can't be flexible, then what are you doing? All this does is increase friction. Meal prep is supposed to reduce it, but when you block yourself in this way, it increases that friction and makes it difficult for you to stick to the plan or stay on course or stay consistent. And this is the other thing I often talk about in my weekly newsletter is the fact that meals or how you eat, there is no perfection to it because you're a living, breathing human being. And having a system in place that allows you to do the same thing, whether you have high energy days or you have low energy days, means you can nourish yourself. That means that it might not be perfect today, but you got some of it done. Or you might have a low energy day, but you're still able to do some of it, or you're still able to get in a particular type of meal. And the thing about that too, or what makes this even more than just eating the same meal every day, is the fact that meal prep is also mental. There's cognitive work involved because in order to put the meals together, you have to plan, you have to organize, you have to go to the grocery shop, think about the grocery shopping. Then you have to think about your future needs, what you might need, or what you will need, or what might change as the week progresses. All of this is cognitive work. And especially if you're somebody with ADHD, during times of stress, this cognitive work is like circuiting your brain, especially when you have executive dysfunction, needing to do all of these things. And so, it goes back to my original statement that meal prep is not just one thing, or it's never just the physical. In fact, before you even start it, there's mental work involved. So here as a version, meal prep, even that common version, it is still very much a mental uh, activity before it becomes a physical one. And so again, I go back to why I stress being flexible and being curious because your consistency with nourishing yourself through meal prep does not require you to be perfect. It requires you to instead to have a way to feed yourself on regardless of the day you're facing. And when it comes to flexibility, what you want to do is give yourself options. So this is where I share the other versions of meal prep. So we have the common version. Cook on Sunday, portion out your meals, have them for the rest of the week. Then you have my favorite, which is you prepare pieces of meals or components. I call it component cooking. And this is one method of preparing, say, ingredients. So maybe you season the meat, maybe you cook the meat or protein, maybe you wash the vegetables, and maybe you chop them up. Maybe you chop up your fruits. Maybe you put your snacks in some Ziploc bags. So you do some prep there, but you prepare components, and then what this does is allow you to have options. These options make it so that you can adjust. Make it so that when time comes to make a meal, you are not necessarily having the same thing every single day. So giving yourself options through this method of meal prep, which is comparing components, having them in the fridge. So you chop up your seasonings, your onions, your peppers. So you have those to toss in whenever you need to stir fry or cook the meal. You season meat if you're somebody who wants to cook every single day, or you could bake the chicken, or curry the chicken, do whatever, cook it, and then have that sitting in the fridge ready to be mixed and matched with whatever carbs or veggies that you have prepared. Another way to meal prep is to have these things already done for you. So whether you get it from the grocery store and bring it home and then you just put together on any given day, or you could do things like use one of those meal kit services where you don't have to do anything as far as selecting or choosing the menu. You do. We go on their website, you choose the particular meals that you want or the menu that you're interested in. They send you the ingredients and then you put that together. Yes, you still have to do some cooking, but a lot of the work has been taken out as far as the grocery shopping. So that's one way to meal prep, outsource it to a meal kit delivery service. And then you have the other end of that, or the other side of that, being a meal delivery service where you get those meals already prepared and they're delivered to you. And the only thing you need to do is decide which one of those meals you're going to have and reheat it. Again, that is also, what you call it, already cooked food. So for those who hate leftover foods, that might not be the best choice for them. They might still order foods that they can cook themselves. They just don't do any of the planning around it. They just get it and need to heat it up either in the oven or however they need to. So that's your meal delivery service. And then for those who can afford it, you hire a chef. Or maybe you know an auntie in your neighborhood who does cooking and will cook some meals for you so that you don't have to do it. But there are ways to meal prep that does not involve you spending all day on a Sunday cooking up all of this food, portioning it out, and then having the same meals repeatedly for the week. You have options. You can exercise flexibility. And it's a reminder, or me sharing this is a reminder to you that the goal of meal prep is to lower the barrier to nourishing yourself, reducing the friction to nourishing yourself, regardless of the health goal that you have. And what a lot of folks come up against is when things aren't perfect. So they're going good for a week or they're going good for 2 weeks. But the mindset of it needs to be perfect means that when they come upon resistance or something that challenges the perfectly curated timeline that they've set, it crumbles. So, for example, when I teach folks as far as how to nourish themselves quite easily and putting a meal together, I say go back to the basic bowl framework. Go back to the basics, which is imagine a bowl and you just want to get some protein, some veggies, some carbs slash fiber, some healthy fats, and a little something to make it taste good if it's not part of the fats or the carbs. And this is a system that works whether you are highly motivated or you ain't got no motivation or it's nowhere to be found. Whether you have high energy days or you have low energy days. This is why a system and something as simple as that means you can nourish yourself. So whether you are going to do it from a gas station because you're on a road trip, or you're going to do it from the salad bar at your local deli or grocery store, uh, even if snack foods or restaurants, regardless of where you go, with that idea in mind, I'm going to just put these together, It might not be perfect as far as I might not have uh, perfect portions, or I might end up with a little more protein. Maybe I'll have a little extra carbs because I'm not serving it up myself, or maybe this is all the protein I can get right now in this moment. But something is always going to be better than nothing. Put differently, my perspective is imperfectly doable beats perfectly not done, and that's what happens when folks think of that common meal prep version, or try to stick themselves in the box as far as that common version of meal prep is, and instead of asking themselves, what do I need to nourish me? What do I need to ensure I stay nourished regardless of the situation? And so this is me saying to you that meal prep, one size does not fit all. One version is not the only version. You have options, and you shouldn't, I don't want you to get stuck in aiming for this perfection by prepping the way you think it has to be, right? The point of meal prep is to help yourself eat well or eat better if that is your goal. Improving your eating habits might be the goal. And that's the other thing. Everybody has a different goal when it comes to meal prep, but the premise remains the same: nourishing yourself. And if we can all think about that, and in the back of our heads every single time, what is it going to take to nourish myself today? The other thing about meal prep is there's an assumption that the perfection means that you have every single thing on the plate every single time, every single meal. That's the goal. That's ideal. But there are going to be days where you do not have it for every single meal. What's important to keep in mind, or what's important in all of this, is the overall picture. So maybe one meal didn't have everything. Maybe you had a little more of a snack at one point. What does that look like over the week, over the month, over 6 months, as opposed to what does that look like every single day? Of course, you want to aim to have as many of the components on your plate as possible at every single meal. But that's not the reality. It's never always going to be the case. So bear that in mind whenever you go to nourish yourself, especially through meal prep. Doing what you can with what you have as best as you can. And I think, again, once you have that in mind, then it makes nourishing yourself a little easier. It makes your approach to meal prep a little easier. So when folks talk about failing at meal prep, I come back to, are you failing at meal prep the way folks say it has to be done? Or are you failing because you think you're not doing it perfectly? And that in and of itself kind of gives people perspective, because then it comes down to, how can I go about this, nourishing myself the best way possible? And for some folks, straight out the gate, they get it. And for other folks, it takes practice. Because at the end of the day, this is a practice if it's not something you do regularly. So where meal prep is concerned, give yourself grace, but also know that there are many ways to meal prep. You can meal prep the common way, because that's what you like and that's what works. Or you can meal prep in a way that suits you best. So maybe you don't like repetitive meals. Find a way that allows you to have multiple meals or a variety of meals in the simplest way possible. I wouldn't say easy, because easy is relative, and something can be very simple and not be easy. Something can be easy, and if it's easy, it's typically simple. But if it's simple, it's not always easy. I guess that's the best way to look at it. So find the easiest way. I have no problem saying this. The easiest way to nourish yourself is going to be the best way in. And then you can tweak later on. You can't optimize what you have not habitualized. At least that's what I say. That's my way of looking at things. So once again, perfect meals aren't the goal. Consistent meals are. Nourishing yourself consistently is. So if you found this conversation helpful and you want more of this perspective, be sure to join my weekly newsletter, The Weekly Dose. Go to thebasicbowlnutrition.com/the-weekly-dose. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe to this channel. And if you do nothing else, nourish yourself one moment, one bowl at a time.